let's get into it. Yeah, so you can skip ahead to the next slide. We'll keep it pretty high level. Yeah, so we will record this. We had quite a few people sign up, but as we know with webinars, so we did try and get an in-person happening, probably a bit short notice for people these days. They need to do whatever they need to do when they leave the house. So we had quite a minimal sign-ups, but we will work towards that next one in December, which we'll talk a bit more to. So we will record this. Interactive. We've got a smallish group, so I think everyone knows what to do. But just mute yourself during the session and post your comments in there. But we'll probably have it a bit more interactive with Shannock's time with some of the new features that we can go into. So skip ahead to the next one, Shan. So yeah, a lot of people have heard of this before, but we are the MelBUG group. So we'll just go through a bit of an intro around who we are and who's worked on this over the last couple of years. But tonight's focus will be that presentation from Shan on the new Review 21 and particularly the Bluebeam Cloud. So I know that's pretty new to the market, so we'll see what that's all about, and time for some questions as well with the time that we have. If you want to skip ahead, Shan. So the bugs really are industry people, and Bluebeam is very specific about this. We do want this to be from the industry, from users, and that's part of the challenge that we have as the chair and the committee members is finding the speakers. So it sounds like we got Vince on the hook to do one next time, but yeah, it is a lot of work. So we do appreciate people that share a passion and want to share knowledge. And the biggest successes we've had are the groups that we've had people just sharing workflows, and to be honest, that's what people want to hear. They can go and see the spiels at various different forums, but when it's from the users by the users, that's where we really serve a purpose, the knowledge sharing and collaboration that we've had, and we've had a lot of success with that. So I really appreciate people contributing to that, and I know it's a big effort on some people's behalf, but that's the purpose of the bug that we've got here today. Next slide, Jen. So there is ones around the world. I think through COVID, it's been easy to do these things online, and there is a lot of good content being captured. So really recommend, if you haven't looked into that, searching up the other bugs, and there is a whole launch page on the Bluebeam website. But probably more easy to find is the YouTube channel, where you can find a lot of the recorded sessions about what's been happening around the other bugs as well. So it is one good thing that we're doing a lot of these things online. It does make it more global, and it does mean people can dip in, like we have Vince here today as well. So next slide. So yeah, I'm the host and the chairperson of the group, so working with ACOM. So we've been part of it for quite a while. If you skip to the champs, Shan. We do have Lachlan, who can't be with us tonight. He's enjoying some holiday time over in South Australia, well deserved, and should point out newly promoted. So both our committee members, Lachlan recently promoted to principal, so well done to him. And Shan's got a new role title there as well, which I got right this time. Normally he changes roles every 6 months, I would say, and I normally get it wrong and have the wrong thing there, which he points out. So he's now the Enterprise Customer Success Manager at Bluebeam. But yeah, luckily we do work closely with him at ACOM through his role as the enterprise account that we have there. So well done to both Lachlan and Shan on promotions. Seems like everyone's promoted this year though. I think if you looked at LinkedIn, your update is just promoted. So I'm not sure if that dilutes everyone, or maybe I'm bitter.
I was going to say, I think you just watered down my promotion. Thanks for that. So you got it right this time, but now you watered it down.
Yeah. Can't give you too much glory. Maybe I'm bitter. I didn't get a promotion, so that's where I'm sitting. Yeah. But we do welcome contributions. So we have had some other committee members in the past. Yeah, it's not a very thankful. Yeah, you don't get a lot of thanks for it, I would say. I think once we're back to the in-person, it's a bit more engaging, but there's a bit of work that goes on behind the scenes, but we do get together and chat, and you do have access to the global bugs group as well. So there is a global support from Bluebeam with this bug. So they do have a platform that people connect in that space as well. So it is a good thing to be part of. If that's something of interest, definitely reach out to us. So yeah, next slide. So yeah, getting into the presentations today. So we'll hand over to Shanok, who's going to run through the latest and greatest.
That's it. Thank you, Ben. I'll let you enjoy your time there at the Qantas Lounge or wherever you are. That's how dedicated you are. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't really mind if the microphones are on, to be honest. Just ask questions. I might answer it halfway through. I might not. We'll see how we go. So with Bluebeam subscription coming through, you see a bit of a change going on. So Review Desktop is still there, but that's moving into subscription, which means you got named accounts, which means there's some changes there inside the desktop. I was discussing with Vince earlier, if you open up from Review 22 to 21, you might not see anything too staggeringly different. That's because a lot of the resources have been putting into the going to subscription model, going into the field tools, and also an updated org admin, which is really now for everybody, not just for the enterprise clients. All right, I won't do too many slides. I will go into a live thing. So the new product range, what I want to just let you know is, so we had standard, CAD and extreme. And you'd be fair enough, you could think that, well, that's just transferred into basic, core, and complete. But I really want to point out that's not the case. The way I've been thinking it more so is if you're on standard, you're probably more likely to go on to core. And if you were on extreme, then that's definitely a 1-for-1 to go into complete. Basics really comes into customer feedback, and it also brings into the idea of why there's a whole big shuffle. I also just want to make sure I'm trying to present tonight more so as an end user and tech experience. I don't want to do the spiel type thing. So I can try and give you more of a understanding how, as an end user, you would understand these changes. So with basics, the feedback is about clients who actually had standard but weren't using all those features. It's not the case of, they should be using those features, but they just simply wouldn't. Think about the administration people. Think about maybe some project managers that are just dabbling in and out of Bluebeam, maybe in sessions and so forth. So what we looked at is reducing the tools that are available, which therefore makes a reduction in cost. I'm saying in that way because we're already getting some feedback of people thinking, I'll just go buy basics, and then they're not getting the measurement features that they need because they do quantity takeoff. So if that's what you're doing all day, doing measurements, when basics is not going to cover what you need. It's not a like for like from standard to basics. There's some information out there as well on our support pages of comparisons, and I think it's going to come out very soon, of comparing the perpetual licensing to the subscription licensing, and try and understand the like for like and where the differences are. As for moving from perpetual to subscription, we understand that this can be a bit of a disruption for people. It's a bit unnerving. Try and make sure your licenses all work and how they migrate across. There's heaps of information out there about self upgrades. Want to point out, if you go to your resellers, go to our tech team anyway. They're there to help you out. There is if you're on maintenance, there's, just like it's always been, you can upgrade to the newer version. So you can actually jump online and upgrade yourself to new versions of Review. And there's other things to do with the pricing and so forth, but once again, that's not my field. The other thing I think is quite interesting is the org admin portal. For anyone in the past, that would have been like an enterprise licensing. I say past, it's still relevant for quite a lot of companies before they move over. So enterprise licensing means that you can, or what it still means is you can actually go into your gateway access, and you can see who's got those licenses, and you can revoke licenses, move licenses around. If you had open licenses, then you could see, how many licenses have been used and how many people can't get access to licenses. The new org admin is not an additional cost. It's just part of every subscription now, and it's governed by the domain. So that basically you get to see all your staff's licensing. It's much easier for IT to administer licenses because you don't have a product key and serial number anymore. Also, what's interesting is there was a client the other day, they were talking about setting up a sort of default package they're going to install for every computer moving forward. And they asked about Bluebeam being installed. In the past, you could do like that big deployment package for brand new laptops or Microsoft installation. But then the product key and the serial number makes it challenging. But with this, it means that you can just do a deployment. It means that the end user is a unlicensed collaborator till such time that they maybe say, yep, I warrant having a license of Bluebeam. And it makes it really easy for IT to jump on and just allocate that license to that person. I'll show you the portal in a moment. All right, so I figure that's enough of PowerPoint, and we'll go into Bluebeam. So is that coming through okay? The screen? Great. Okay, so this is review 21. I've actually been using it for quite some time now. There isn't any sort of huge differences. The one that's going to stand out the most, my interface is all different, but you can see I've got all my tool sets here are grayed out. That's because I'm currently unlicensed. So I've actually go into my sign-in. Now, being a US company, they set me up in the US, so I jump onto there. So with this, it comes with SSO as well. So we can have that set up for your company. So with the SSO, we don't need to know our passwords so much anymore. Now, what I will point out, I mean, I'd rather have this set up to the Australian server. It will be quicker to ping. I remember doing demonstrations using studio sessions with the US server, and then when we've got the Australian server in 2019, it's heaps quicker. So there is some delay with some things I'm showing when it comes to pinging the information there. What that means, obviously our tools are accessible. There is enough to use now, just like we had before. In studio sessions, I've got the Australian server I do use for studio sessions, so it won't actually use my credentials to jump in there. But had I had my administration domain logged into the Australian server, then this would automatically log me into studio sessions as well. So that makes that a bit quicker. One thing that's worth noting is everything I'm saying tonight leverages off your Bluebeam ID. So you really want to have that associated to your work email, and that's all interconnected. So that's where we get into Bluebeam Cloud. That's how we have our login for here. So it's all basing upon that Bluebeam ID. If you're not sure what that is, if I take this off, I go to my sign in. The Bluebeam ID is what you may have been using, well, you would have to use for your studio sessions where you create an account. And inside here, just to point out, so we have Vince up there in the UK. You want to use a UK server, much quicker. Obviously, the team in the US using there, but us in Australia, we want to use the Australian server. If you're not sure, by the way, just as a bit of a background, if you're working on infrastructure projects and definitely defense projects, there's a requirement for data sovereignty that all the information is saved on Australian soil. So that all meets the compliance there. Something else with the review that's new little add-ins is we can send our tool chest up into the cloud. So it's a push. One day we're talking about a push-pull type scenario, but what we can do is push the markup standards that you've built up. That's part of that sort of flagship Bluebeam thing up into the cloud and use it there. All right. Tell you what, it's only a small crew. If there's any questions about this at all, happy to answer any questions there. All right, so I'm going to jump on to the next part.
Is there any changes to the tools in the sessions environment, or is that still available the way it was grayed out without signing in as a collaborator, but in studio sessions it's still available?
So that is a change. if you are a unlicensed collaborator, so whether you're using Bluebeam installation and it's just a free viewer or so forth, the difference is now you've only got a couple of markups. So if I do I have access? If I sign in, I think I've got one set up for hopefully I remember this email password. I think it is, I don't. Probably try this 3 times. Yep, sure. Yeah, okay. Can't remember what I did change this once too.
I'll believe you there.
Yeah, essentially, sorry, your tool chests are going to be locked out, and so we'll grayed out those diagonal lines. In your markup here, we've got text box, we've got the call out, we've got line and arrow. I think there might be a dimension markup as well and some shapes. And then when it comes to using the colors, we only have access to red and green to changing the colors. Having said that, the statuses are still working fine. So if you're doing a red line markup, you can then just set your default to red and then do all your markups that you want to use and using the shortcut keys. And then still using statuses to make changes to other collaborators on the fly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And are they upgrading perpetual licenses on to 21, or you can only go to subscription for 20? I think it is both, isn't it? There is an option for those, particularly enterprise customers, to sort of delay the subscription model a bit further. Yeah.
So what do you mean? As in, if you're on perpetual, can you upgrade to subscription if you're on the maintenance, or are you talking about studio sessions in particular?
Oh no, just from a licensing perspective, you can go to Review 21 and stay on perpetual for a period while you sort of figure out what you're doing with subscription. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, this is starting to dabble into the back end of more so from the, say from the sales side. But look, since you put it out there and to answer it, the intention there is for those type of enterprise clients, or it could be smaller ones, checking with your resellers and with Bluebeam Direct, but you can renew your license, but you're not obligated to jump across straight away. Some companies, they just have to check with all the compatibility with other software, with the deployments. It's no just flick the switch, so we're well aware of that. The only really delay is if you don't jump on and then it's using the other tools that we have available. All right.
Sorry, Shane.
Yeah.
Sorry, mate, before we come forward, in respect to using the two tools, we can cross-platform it, right? As in we can use 2020 and 2021 at the same time through Studio Session without any hiccups?
I have not seen any, no. Nothing's really come about, but so from a technical point of view, I would want to use it and break it and see where it doesn't work, but nothing's come through that I've seen, and there's no indication to say that won't work. If you want to talk about the nitty-gritty there, there's an end of life for review for 19 and previous. So the understanding there, or the information there is there's legacy code in the old ones. We're going to be updating Amazon servers, how we're using those, and just dragging the old versions, kicking and screaming is just not really productive and probably just hold back, I imagine, the software. So in reality, if you've got older versions than 19 and previous, then yes, that will be an issue and there'll be compatibility because they just won't get into a studio session.
Okay, cool. Yeah, look, most of our teams on 20, actually all our teams on 20, it's more concerned for some of these larger projects where they've sort of nominated a year and we've got other consultants going to jump ahead to keep up with licensing. That particular project might be a bit of strife. So that's all cool. We can trial, I guess.
That still opens up to, even like I was saying earlier, I mean, the company probably want to do a deployment and, remove the old one and update it. but I mean, they can still be free collaborators anyway, and just be in review 21, and just not actually have a license until it's worked out.
Okay, cool. Thanks, man.
Yeah, that part's not going away. So if I go into here, all right. So this is Bluebeam Cloud. So inside here, there's a couple of different aspects to this. So here we have the dashboard. So this is the main flagship, and this is what first came out. It's interesting, as I was saying earlier on, part of a presentation I did at XCon recently. I think the best way to describe this is, well, back then it's like day one of Bluebeam Cloud, in the sense that we're not putting this out there as a fully mature product and all the bells and whistles are fully tied up, and it's definitely part of Bluebeam's DNA to get feedback. So what that really means for me, and what I'm seeing is, like, when we first had this review came out, the rendering was a bit, oh yeah, but even since then we've just had updates to the rendering, and that's all happening on the cloud. So therefore it's not a quarterly update or a yearly major update. It's just, oh, this is better, okay, do a little QA check, bang, send it out, and everyone globally is getting these updates. So that's doing a really big improvement, and this is where I'm going to apologize as I jump onto the American server. It's just taking a moment. Actually, interesting enough, on my iPad, it's a bit quicker. I'll show you that in a moment, which is more interesting than what we normally see on the screen. And I think Teams seems to kill me a little bit too. Apologize for that. So from a markup point of view, we've got a very simple strip back markups. The intention here is to be a field tool. And so we're seeing some of the basic markups that we've known and used within Bluebeam. Within this as well, we've got our customization we can do within these. Just very simple stuff here, of course. It's not meant to be the powerhouse that review is. So that's still the where you're doing all your administration. You can using spaces, your hyperlinks, all those sort of things. You're having your set up so I can jump around the drawings much easier. And using those through, probably shouldn't have jumped around because it's going to take a moment to refresh. Jumping around those drawings, that's batch hyperlink. I told you before about the markups that we can send to the cloud. So that tool chest, it comes with the vanilla markup tools, but you can see I've pushed across my digital markups here. So our company standards are coming through with this as well. So we can have those standards set up and push across into the cloud for that sort of on-site, or and as a markup tool, we can collaborate and push around with other people. Inside here, we've got access into our RFIs and into a defect inspection, but it's like a single source of truth, but it's probably not as interesting here. I'm going to jump across into another drawing and I'll show you there. So it's interesting talking to one of our clients that just simply wants access to drawings out in site and making it easier. So for them, they hopefully will be looking at this as just an opportunity to get the latest set of drawings on site on mobile devices. And I really want to point out it's only on the Apple devices. The Android stuff's coming soon. I don't have a date for that, but it's glaringly obvious, so we know it has to come out. If I go back to the dashboard, I think Teams gives it like an extra 10 to 20% more time anyway, a bit frustrating. We have inside here those drawings I looked at before. We have documents, which could be part of your specifications or other sort of information you want to put in there and communicate on site, so it's at hand. Or your defect listings here, so I can quickly jump into those through the project. There's a lot of opportunity to filter this information as well. So we can take this information out and look at the statuses that it's been, what's open, show those 51 items. I'm showing you just on the web app at the moment, but just think about that on your phone or whatever. It's just really simple to navigate. We don't need lots and lots of different options and really quite clunky. So you want to be able to find the problem really quickly and move on from that. Even inside here, if I jump into there, we've got access to that information. Descriptions and so forth. I can go through this in greater detail if you want, but we've got different levels of priority and statuses. who you want to assign to these information, and actually taking photographs and marking them up on the site. That's all well and good, but where is the drawing? For the sake of the little delay we have here, but I can click on that and it will open up that drawing to tell me where it is, and I can go back to my RFI, or defect, I should say. Another option that's really good is going to our map view. So inside here, we can see where I've located this in Melbourne. And if I go into my layers, this is where, okay, this is interesting. My teams, there it is. Good. I was really worried. I have some issues there with my teams. We can't, your phone doesn't actually understand what level in the world you are, your RL. So to get around this, we're using layers, and layers is assigned to the different levels of the building. So I've got a layer, which is my level 2. So if I was doing defects, or I've got RFIs inside here, it's assigning them to that drawing. As a single point of truth, that means that this markup here is actually going to the drawings as well. So it's 2 of the one in the same spot. And then when you get updates, it's going to update the information but retain all the data, just like we've done with batch slip sheeting, and or if you're using sets. So you retain that information, you just keep building it up as you go through the project. I won't place a defect here. I'll do it on my on the Apple device. Let me see if I go back into, all right. Let's see how well this works. Just installing a new app today, but will it play nicely for me? And it is, all right, so that's on my iPad. So if I come across into the information here, it's interesting enough, it actually is quicker for me to utilize on the iPad. And this is actually an older file. I do know we've actually improved I've done a different file I had set up. The rendering has actually improved on this again. And if I go back, press the hamburger at the top right-hand corner, I can actually go into the map view. Now to go through these, obviously the hamburger there gives us the options. Then I can go pick on the world option, so we can actually see from our satellite imagery, we can cycle through that and just have everything turned off. You just need it nice and clean, or we can put the Google Maps background. The next one down is the arrow. I won't press that because it's going to be so far away, me up here in the hills in Melbourne. But I actually have tested it out, and that's where you see all the RFIs and defects on here. They're not showing at the moment, but I'll get them on. Your phone sometimes might be off by a meter or two, or has some interesting things as my GPS sort of, and Apple understands where I am. It might be like 4 meters off. But you can always relocate that or press it where you want to be, which I'll do in the moment, which is also one of the questions that comes out, like, well, what if I'm offline? What if I'm down a mine or a big open cut mine or something? Or what if I just in a basement? So this works offline as well, and it'll refresh when you go back online. And then lastly, if you do ever get lost and you don't know where you are, the next button down just reorientates you where you need to be. So as for placing a defect, even though I was looking at level 2 then, I could possibly have 4 or 5. Can I export data? Yes, you can. Yeah, it actually works very similar, Zoe, to when you export out from the markup list. I could probably have a crack at it and see how it looks. It might take a little bit to generate. So we need to confirm that it's level 2 that this defect or RFI is going to. So I do select, and inside here I can now place my defect. So if I put it inside the elevator, so there, not really placing too well. Okay, and an interesting little workflow for people, if you use spaces in Bluebeam to maybe for quantity takeoff, your spaces will actually give you a location for you. That wasn't a location, that was from previous. So I'll just say elevator. This is very handy. I don't mind the idea of just using the microphone on this. So I can say there's a crack in the wall of the elevator that needs repairing. It is quite interesting to really challenge Apple and see what it really comes up with sometime, but always interesting for a demonstration. And we've got all the different options inside here. I would say that if there's we've actually had some interesting points of, customization inside here. I would say that's not there yet. It's probably the best way to describe it. I'm just picking up some random stuff. But the intention there is to be very quick and simple, and I can even put on the phone if you want me to have a look at that. If I take a photograph inside the studio, there we go. And I'm sure that's the entrance to the elevators at my house. I'll save this. All right, so if you want, I'll stop sharing this one.
So Shan, just to follow up on that one, does that save as CSV or PDF?
Both, yeah.
Ah,
It's
awesome.
yeah, I was really impressed by that too. Just I know it sounds like just being a love of Bluebeam type thing, but yeah, I was concerned, like, what we're going to do with this information. What does it mean down track? So here I am on the phone with the same sort of information. So it's interesting. When I first opened it up, I did think, oh, where's all the rest of the buttons? But reality is, where are you going to fit those buttons and what are you going to do with them? So when you get your review subscription, you're getting everything. It's not just a bit of this and a bit of that. So I will point out, if you're on basics, you can't set up studio projects, but you definitely can collaborate within studio projects. So to this is information as well. We can go into our map tools here, or go back into our drawings if you want. And I can just pick up on here on level 2 information and search for that. So now I've got my level 2 drawings. I think that's my level 2 general arrangement plan there. And if I wait for the refresh, no, that's my structural architectural. There's the information. If I go into there, if I'm actually got it right, I think that's the one I just took the picture of, and there it is there. So really just trying to push across the idea that it's all live and collaborating. You've got quite a big team. You can be part of this. I'm really excited to see what could be done with the architects and engineers. I know there's some other workflows that is being used, but being that this is just part of Bluebeam, I think it'd be interesting to see what can be done with it. Maybe as a part of the bug commentary, maybe it needs some more maturity to be fully utilized out in the field, but I think it's definitely got the promise there. While I'm still in here, is any questions at all? No one's going to throw any challenges? You can turn the mic on if you want. Let me just look at the chat there.
There's a couple of questions there.
Yep. Sorry, Connect Late. Where are the tools on the iPad phone? Yeah. So good question. I actually don't know the answer to that. So I'm going to sound like an end user, say I'm waiting for that too. I have no insight into that. I'm kind of curious if the phone will have markup tools, because I'm not really sure how I'll be able to use them with any level of accuracy. But we do already have Bluebeam review on the iPad, so probably going to get myself in trouble, but I would imagine that we can put markup tools on that. What we are saying is it's not there yet. It's not to say it can't be developed. Abdul, saw your name on there. Still going to get you to present one time. Oh, I think Christmas is good. You're in Melbourne. We're going to get you to present at Christmas, I'm sure. Okay. Can we customize the options with defects and RFI? Okay, that's what I was sort of pointing to. At this moment, no. There's still more development. Actually, I'm probably speaking out of turn, but there's still things that on the roadmap they want to get incorporated into there. And I want to show you in a moment my workspace, which is really exciting. So I think that sounds great. We've had other feedback about that too. With that feedback, when you get to play with it, I definitely would suggest pushing it back into Bluebeam. I found out the other day, and maybe Ben, you're even suggesting it too. Feedback about future options is actually weighted in the sense that the more people say it, the more it goes up the line. That's what I'm going back to about the DNA of Bluebeam. It's not some other software I've worked with in the past, which is kind of like we do what we think is best. I don't think we have that. I want to put it another way. I gave some feedback about some workflows and what some clients have already told me, and that's turned up already. Right, that's actually happening. All right.
I've got a question if I can.
Yeah, go for it.
See, a lot of these are just examples are based on one building, several different floors. Can you see this working? Like, as I said, I'm working on housing developments. So as you walk around the site, I'm looking at an engineering layout for the whole site. Can you see this working on that? As in being able to place defects and marking things up, or would it work on the site layout level?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So when you actually place this inside here, for the sake of time, I won't go into it, but it's really simple to place them on. So does that mean you'd want to have individual drawings of the houses as such, and just have individual drawings and update them? That's quite possible. And then you got one project. Or was it easier if you just do an entire site layout and just says it acknowledges that this is house 106 and this is well, then you got levels issues if it's a 2-story or more. But I think both answers would be true. I think, sorry, it sounds challenging or like I'm not really answering it, but it just depends how the team wants to use it. You might have guys that are like, I don't want to see every other house on there. I just want to see my house. But at least I will say with confidence that when you go to your file view and you go into your drawings, there's definitely an opportunity with your naming convention to able to filter down by individual disciplines or particular comments, or might be house 103. Yeah. To your point earlier, you said about naming conventions being an issue in the UK. What I learned a little bit clunkily in a clunky way, but worked out well. This information here, if anyone's used Bluebeam drawings in the past, it actually read the information from the bottom right-hand corner from the American Institute of Architecture Standards, which no one uses. So what Bluebeam have done is that's reading the information from the thumbnails. So the thumbnails is when you got, if I go back into here, that's your thumbnails there. So probably a little bit challenging for yourself, Vince, but you can get the thumbnails to create page labels and read that drawing number and drawing name, and that will then update inside Bluebeam Cloud automatically for you.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to have to play about with that to see if I can get that working, I think.
My gut feel is you might be, I wouldn't want to do the entire site plan. I'm only just thinking when, this house is finished, but it's still inside there. I want to close that house out. This one's still halfway through. This one's had delays. But if you're doing like over 100 houses, I probably wouldn't do 100 projects either. So I don't know if you group it by courts or by what.
Yeah. Definitely one to have a play with, I think.
So any other questions, just keep going for it. I don't mind a challenge. With the information on, say, the, I'm going defects, they're a bit more interesting. If I go into here, I can export that information out. So that's the opportunity as a XLS X or as a PDF as well. I can hit that. I can't remember how long it takes to generate, and might be some theme music in the background. It's not crazy long, but it's not fun for a demonstration.
Does it do you remember if it has any geolocation data that it comes out with?
No, I actually don't know. I didn't even think about asking about that.
Is there much effort to do that alignment to the site? Is that
No.
a one-by-one process, or that's?
It is a one-by-one process. It does seem to understand the smarts in the background. So if I do a layer now say create new layer, I want to go to the put on level 1. I can it's a little bit of a laugh here. The people who may not use metric didn't quite get this, but it seems to work out well because 1 centimeter is 1 meter. That's my 1 to 100. So that's kind of a default for metric. So that's great. Just be aware though, if it's not 1 to 100, so you got to do your 0.75, but you can always change it to say millimeter to millimeter. Hit enter there. Next step, and it's going to place it on the page. Maybe it's because of the time gap I had between the last one, but I think I had to work out the angle first, and I must admit that was a little bit of time, and this is really small increments, so but the information from memory, I need to confirm this, is updating when you update the background anyway. So I'll just go for that for now and say, yep, we're in the right location there, and we can save that. So now we have our drawings probably not lined up too well. There we are not lined up too well. But I think from an infrastructure point of view, that might be challenging because you're stitching them together. But I'm not sure. I'm not aware of any workflow at the moment to put them in bulk or anything like that.
Yeah, definitely a feature request. And is there any connection from the Bluebeam review into this? You sort of indicated that you send it from review to get the thumbnails.
Yeah. Okay. So
is that an update process as well? Because that's one of the things, I guess, is if this initial setup is in place and the drawings are revised, how quickly you can send the latest stuff out to site.
So from there, it's really about adding your drawings. So we pull in the add drawings. You can actually import drawings. It's from your integrations from Studio currently. And I do say this as in like this will change. It'll be a push-pull, but it's just a pull from Studio or from your other integrations that you have set up, or just simply what I've been using half the time, which is just browse and then just dropping files in there myself. From that markup, it goes into the uploads. The uploads will then, oh, there you go. There's something I've got in there ready for review. I won't apply them in case it does something. I didn't update the drawing names, but they would understand the superseded of the old drawings. So that works like your sets, where it understands that this is the old revision, the same in naming convention. So this must be the new revision. Copy all that data across for you.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. Do you see it being used for reviews as well as this site-based?
Well, let's talk about that part. And actually, I'll just, while we're here, one more thing. The information here on, do I want to get into my team? We've tried to do a lot more of the information as well. I'm talking about spruiking more so with the Bluebeam features and all that. Understand how to use this much more than what we had with review in the past. Is it in my settings? Oh, this is my team. We can start adding more people to the team. And there's different permission levels from admin, member, and viewer. I'm just going to say, when you play around with this, make sure that you understand if someone's an unpaid collaborator that don't have a license, you might want to make them a member, but they're still effectively a viewer level regardless. So just be aware of different permission levels and what that means. I don't think I have anything in scene. That's just about the project integrations. All right. So if I go into Bluebeam here and then get a refresh. So one of the interesting things that just turned up last week. So when I talked about like, this is day 1 and I don't know, make up a number, this is day 3. And from a evolution of Bluebeam review on your desktop, that might have taken 6 months to a year to get to day 3 because, well, at least 3, quarterly updates. They might have done a point update, like, 19.1, then 19.2, not the little patches, but just the, modest updates. But this just happens on the fly. So it's pretty exciting to hear that my workspace is going to turn up. So you're asking, Ben, about an opportunity with studio sessions. I'll be honest, I got a bit confused. I was like, where's this all fit into the ecosystem? Studio sessions and Bluebeam Cloud, if you start doing some live markups, especially when there's talk that this is the part where the API is going to open up, that companies are about to start tapping into it, or integrations where historically you've had to buy Studio Prime to open up the API to get maybe Procore or Innate to their DMS to work with Bluebeam for a markup in studio sessions and back and forth. This is where this is going to open up. So it's not just Studio Prime, it's basically anywhere you got Bluebeam. But inside here, we've got our markups. So I don't see this as a replacing at any point soon of studio sessions, but definitely inside here, we can do our own custom markups. I was playing around with it earlier, same type of markups that we've got before. So you can play around this space, and I'm not sure at this point, I don't think there's anything to invite anyone else into here, but that very well might come into play later on. Probably just pipe dreaming. I wouldn't say this is a Bluebeam thing, but just I think it's interesting. There might be something like maybe it's a project wise, and that pushes into this space. And because there's less setup in a studio session because it's part of your project, and you just invite people to this project or my workspace, and then bring it back, and the API can start working in the background there. Can we do auto scaling in markups? What do you mean, Zoe? Maybe I need to teach me something.
So what I mean is, like, in review, a desktop, we can create markups that auto scale to the scale of the page. Can we do that in the cloud?
Well, probably to your point, it's not needed yet because those tools aren't here yet for it. So one of the things that's going to stand out is where's my measurements, as Vince was saying at the start. That's seems pretty obvious that needs to happen. I don't know the timeline, but yeah, it's kind of like this is not available currently on Android, but that's got to happen. I can't imagine going to some big construction company and go, this is a great tool, just your Apple users can use it. Well, that's not going to sell too well. So, but the exciting thing is if the developers are working on it and for argument's sake, next week that's ready to push out their measurements, then goes to the QA process, and then a couple days later, everyone around the world sees it. Nice. You don't have to wait for another year. So that's pretty cool, because that gives us an opportunity to say about some feedback about things like, oh no, why can't we get this to work, or can we add this functionality or whatever. We're not waiting a year or two down the track.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you.
That's right. I'll show you a bit inside here. This is the new org admin. Inside here, essentially, this is just a mock company. It's be nice if it was a real company with some bit more interesting dashboard here, but they've had to really modernize this from what we had in the past, which was simple information, but well, Ben and I have had conversations about trying to extract information out of it. It's not so super race. So what we can see inside here is the amount of people you have actually identified. I'm not really sure why, but that was actually a bit different earlier today. Have accepted, and how many people got licenses and how people are not using licenses. Let me go back into my account information. Users, I might need a refresh on this. No, here we go. This is some licenses I set up the other day for some demonstrations. So it's easy enough to see where these end users are. So if someone's got reviews set up on their computer already, but no license, you can then set them out an invitation. So I can resend this activation because I haven't accepted that. I can go into here and change their licensing. So I've currently got this person as a read only to sort of indicate an unlicensed collaborator, but then you might want to push them to complete and see how many licenses you're using up. The other interesting part is you can also have multiple tiers. That's like I was saying. So for bigger companies, this is great. They can do different regions to understand costings, or we see some interesting stuff with joint ventures. So they can actually start to break down what this joint venture is absorbing this many licenses. It's worth knowing with new users, it's easy just plug in one. That's that whole region. Really pay attention to this because if you're in Australia, you want the Australian server. You want your license associated to the Australian server, and it's just going to make it easier. Don't believe just because you're logged into the US server that it's going to bring all your credentials across because it's all just Bluebeam. It doesn't work that way. It's a completely different region. And as for bulk, I don't know how many people here in IT as such, but this is super easy. I did one the other day for just 9 licenses. I downloaded the CSV file, updated from the examples, pushed it back up. I did little QA checks that they're all good. And then I had to allocate each person which type of licensing they were going to get. So I think in future reference, that would be an option for just bulk allocating licenses as well. All right. Before I stop sharing that, anything else, guys? Any other questions? I can always flick back. I'll go to the PowerPoint. What type of users are available on account admins?
Like my question is, I'm like a power user and I used to manage, like say, my office's licenses, but now we've gone corporate and now it's like IT that's managing licenses. So is there a way to like IT manages the main packages, but I can still have a view of who's using them, like say like IT and a subgroup of power users that can have access to the accounts, or I don't know how to say it there, but
I see what you're saying, because it's a curious thing. Like, here's IT, they're allocating licenses, and maybe from a financial sense, that's not your job, and they're not going to give you the reins on that. But you also want to see from a power user who's getting the right tools for the right person to have that conversation.
Totally. And I have users that are like, well, now we're on like on Extreme or CAD or Standard. I want to know who's on which, and I'd like to switch them between with them, but now I have to put a request through my IT department and blah blah blah, and it's more complicated than me being like closer to the end user.
I would only guess from what I've seen and played around with that the permission levels are pretty simple. So where you got managing subscription accounts, so that's going to be about IT. But they got the trust in you, to be perfectly honest. I'm not sure if it goes into information of what person allocated what license to who. So I did this all myself because I'm an administrator. I don't know. I don't know if it tells who actually made this.
It's organizational admin or an end user.
Yeah, so I am an admin.
Exactly.
But I've made this person end user, so I dare say it doesn't answer what you want. What I do want to point out is the information here from the dashboard. I think this is still pretty simple, and I've heard time and time again from the product team that this is going to be built out based upon feedback of what clients are asking for. I mean, this is just playing around with the data and what they want to see. So we'll see this expand out, whether it's something that you can get screenshots or I don't know, maybe it might be even exportable information. I genuinely don't know at this point.
Okay, thanks.
I will tell you something that's interesting. We're looking to I think it's all said and done, but a program called Pendo. I never even heard of it before they brought it up, but effectively it's used by software to not understand the individual clicks that someone's doing, but the general workflows or particular buttons people might be using. So to point out, I keep thinking, and Ben and I were talking about this a little while ago, you might have someone that's allocated, say, to a document controller. It'd be really great if they were using overlay and compare or the batch tools for this to do packages, and they can send out to the team to talk about what's been changed on the project. But if they're not using that tool, then there's an educational option to say, well, we need to teach you this, and you're clearly not using it. Equally as well, from an IT perspective, you might have someone that's, complaining that they need the complete version, and then after 6 months, you realize they're not even using half the tools. Well, I'm just going to strip you back. Yep. So I think both sides, and we never had that insight before. So that's not built out as such yet, but that's on the cards for coming out.
All right, thanks.
Shan, is that just for the web version or for the desktop as well?
Desktop too, I'm told. I don't know how far that goes, but I'm told that's going to be tapping into the desktop too.
Okay, cool.
I think it's going to be interesting, just even to be completely self-centered for a moment, as my new role, having conversation with these bigger companies and just saying, well, it really seems like only 10% of your company is using this function. You're really not grasping it, and then might be some other people on the wrong versions and so forth.
100%, absolutely.
All right, Ben.
All right, that was great. A lot of good content. So yeah, we'll keep the wrap up pretty quick. So we're looking ahead. We've got a few volunteers by the sounds of it that we need to have some chats with afterwards for December, but we will try and line up that in-person event for December. So we'll see how we go, but we'll put a lot of time out there. So looking for start of December if we can get that to work. But keep an eye on the group for any posts, and we'll send out emails to people that have signed up as well.
I was just thinking, while we're still not too much from the end, so Abdul, you're asking a question about will we still have the ability to work offline with 3-day free use if we can't get a license? Yes, it still does work offline for a period of time. I don't know what the time frame is. I really should know this, but I've experienced it myself and my internet dropped out, but it all still worked. Because we do have clients that on remote locations without internet at periods of time. So yes. Yep.
Thanks, Sean.
Link to the group. I think most people are part of that already. Next slide, Jen. And this recording will go up as well. So we do have everything on there throughout, and you can find the other global groups as well on there. But that's it. So thanks everyone for joining, and thanks for sharing lots of detailed information.
Thanks, guys.
See you all next time.
Ciao.
Awesome. Thanks, Shan. Thanks, everyone.
All right. See ya.